Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today bringing you the very first of Clekt's new podcast series. Today, we're going to be easing in gently and putting a spotlight on the next-gen analytics platform, Omni, following our recent partnership. Before we do that, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Chris. My focus is helping our clients to unlock the full potential of their data. As some of you listening may already know, here at Clekt, we're a team of data and AI fanatics from all walks of life. We're one of the UK's fastest growing Snowflake specialists, and we help a range of organisations become more effective, more decisive, more strategic, and ultimately more capable of turning their data into real outcomes that matter. Now, with the data and AI landscape constantly changing, we wanted an opportunity to highlight best practices, standout technologies, and new ideas in this space. And this is why we're here today. I'm joined today by the excellent Elliott Fairhall, Clekt's lead solutions consultant who bridges the gap between business requirements and engineering solutions. Essentially, Elliott makes very, very complex concepts sound incredibly simple for non-technical audiences like myself. Now, Elliott, before we dive straight into the detail then, please can you give me a bit of a summary of Omni? What is it, kind of broadly speaking?
Absolutely, I can. Chris, before we sort of go anywhere, what an amazing intro. Thank you. I think you're being way too kind. But in terms of what Omni is and Omni Analytics is, I always like to sort of think of the problem it's trying to solve. So I always think of sort of the classic problem with sort of BI tools is I want something fast, I want something accurate, I don't want to trust it. That's the sort of the things that I sort of really sort of focus on. And I think are the sort of the age-old problems, you could say. It's agility without chaos, right? And so I think that's where Omni really, really positions itself. It's a great analytics and sort of customer-facing data product platform. It's all about self-service. It's all about building out really, really great data products, utilizing a fantastic UI, a spreadsheet-like experience if you prefer, with Excel formulas. You can even use traditional SQL in it if you prefer, or you can work with AI. And the idea here is that Omni's designed with AI in mind. It's got a shared semantic layer. So if you've got different ways or different terms or phrasing, you can store that within the semantic layer. And it's got great governance and great controls. So really, it's a great modern platform for the cloud data era.
Yeah, definitely. As an old school Excel kind of guy, I do love the Omni sheets, definitely. But more interesting than that, actually, one thing I'd love to pick up on there, I mean, it's 2025. I've got to ask, you mentioned AI. Can you give me a bit of an overview as to kind of what AI is within the platform and what's possible with that, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. With Omni AI, there's, I would say, probably two areas by which you can utilize AI. I would say that are the sort of the ones I really massively shout about here is I've got a dashboard. I'm looking at a dashboard. I'm looking at some really good, great visuals. And within Omni, the visuals are really, really great. But what I can do is I can ask questions upon my data. So you'll notice the bottom right-hand corner, you have this thing called Blobby, which I think is amazing for the UK market. I just think of Mr. Blobby. You've got Blobby AI, it's fantastic, where you can actually chat about the data that's on screen. And that is really, really interesting. So it gives you the opportunity to ask questions upon the data that's in front of you right now in terms of a dashboard, but also sort of peeling back the layers of the onion so you can ask further questions or go a bit deeper or ask a complete sort of left field question if you prefer about the data that you have within your platform. So that's the sort of chatbot. And then you have the modeling side of things. So as I said, Omni's a complete comprehensive platform designed for data analytics. So what you can do with Omni is you can model your data. And thinking about who might be using an analytics platform, if I think of previous platforms in the past, you might have to learn a completely new language, or there might be a load of uphill learning and training that you have to do. Whereas what Omni provides you is with this AI experience around metric creating functionality, is you're able to sort of ask the question to create the metric, or ask the question to create the data product that you're looking for. So, if I wanted to know customer lifetime value in the last 12 months, how that's grown or changed, I could ask that of Blobby within the modeling area. And what that will do is that will then look in further data, look at the information, utilizing the semantic layer to then really get the answer that I'm looking for. I can compare and contrast that within the platform as well. But then I can also tweak it and work with basically a virtual BI developer, you could say. So it's really, really informative. It's really great to help inexperienced BI developers. And I think really Omni's designed with AI in mind, allowing you to save time and really get the most out of data quickly.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Elliott. I know from, first-hand experience that speed of insight is really important, but you touched on another really good point, which is about the actual ease of adoption. We've all been there where a new tool gets introduced or a new system and it's a, difficult one to learn and pick up. But, even as a non-technical user, I've used Omni myself and, it really is that simple to pick up and start visualizing the data. So yeah, definitely some interesting points there. One thing I'm keen to touch on, Elliott, I've heard this concept of the semantic layer brought up when we talk about AI, and you're laughing already there. Again, for someone non-technical like myself, what is the semantic layer? What exactly is it, and why is it so important when we start to think about AI?
It's incredibly important. So when we think about our businesses and we think about, and I think about the experience of the clients that we work with as an example, there'll be departments, teams, individuals that will have a definition in their head of what something means. So it might be, in a hospitality business, for example, may have a cover, may have a customer, may have a guest. They all really mean they're very similar in their terms, but you can use them interchangeably, use them wrong. So what a semantic layer provides is a shared language across a team. So think of tribal language. What are our actual metrics? What is the definition of this thing? And what this provides is that consistency for a business. BI tools out there will store this information maybe within a given area or within a given report or a dashboard. It isn't shareable. So that's where one of the sort of big strengths of Omni comes here, that actually it's a shared semantic layer. So I might be in a marketing team and defining what X means. And rather than worrying about me producing a report and then someone exporting it and coming up with a new concept of what that means, what they can actually do is say, okay, this has been clearly defined, this has been shared, this has been verified. And what the semantic layer does, not just for human beings and people that are going to be the outputs and reading the outputs of these really awesome dashboards and scheduled reports, but it provides Omni and Blobby essentially to be able to really support you in natural language querying, so chatting with the data, as I previously said. So it helps promote logic, build good governance, trusting, building trust. But actually, as I say, it ultimately it's the language across your teams, and getting that documented that's really, really important, especially in the AI age.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Elliott. I'm sure, like a lot of others, I've heard this phrase before and never really understood quite what it is. But I guess from my perspective, it's almost like that encyclopedia for jargon and different terminology within a business to then become common language that can be used to power the AI and power those insights. So that's really, really insightful. I'm also thinking I can see why that would be super important for the data team. But what about other teams? What about your finance or your marketing team? Is it equally important across the board?
Well, it's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, and you've got the data team there. I think that's a really key thing. Is that some businesses, if we're thinking about the larger enterprise, may have a data team, or they might have sort of Tim in accounts who's picked up a BI tool because we're a smaller business, which is absolutely fine and is really doing well with it. But you get to a point where actually, that person is possibly struggling because there's knowledge in other people's heads. And so actually, a sort of from a non-technical user perspective, Omni provides, because of that shared semantic there, that empowerment to be able to go, okay, I can work with this team, I can store this information safely, I can reduce bottlenecks because I've got this great governance and I'm able to think about what we want to store, how we want to store it, what's actually going to be used. And ultimately, we're thinking about different departments. It's really about ensuring that consistency and trust in what you're building, because we want to build, I hate the term, but it's true, that single source of truth. You want fewer disputes. But as I say, for a non-technical user, understanding a semantic model and really, so what with an Omni platform, it's all about seeing data as a strategic asset and helping and supporting people that want to go on that journey with you. Actually getting them involved in the process, it really, really helps.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think from my own experience here. We see it all too often, don't we? Where there's kind of pockets of information or pockets of expertise within an organization, and it leads to bottlenecks, right? It leads to kind of information overload when everybody's asking the same questions of the same people. And I think, almost democratizing that and having that information and that access to information across the business is huge, for modern organizations. As I say, definitely can see those benefits. Let's say then if an organization wanted to start using Omni, Elliott, and they wanted to actually get something like this in place, what are the kind of first steps, would you say, on that? Is it as simple as, go and plug and play and go with it?
Yeah, I mean that's the question, isn't it? I mean, with any sort of, if I put a hat on, I put like a CFO hat on today. If I've bought Omni, I want to get the most out of that platform. I want to get the most users utilizing it. I want the information and insights coming from that to be accurate. I want it to be leading data-driven decision making that improves outcomes for the organization. That's what I'm wanting from a SaaS product. So I think to sort of, what is the first step? It's about saying, okay, let's step back. We want to buy this product. We don't want to slow down because it gives you the opportunity to really move at pace, at speed, at velocity. But what we want to do is go, okay, we need to define what is it strategically are our metrics. Do we have those documented somewhere? If so, what do they mean? Does everyone agree with that? So all those types of conversations, having to go, okay, do our metrics that we're measuring and looking to put into amazing dashboards that can absolutely be created or chatted upon within Omni, do they align with our business goals? So that's really important. But it's about building that data-driven culture. So by starting off simple with metrics, goals, alignment, and starting to build out a culture, it isn't about leaving one team behind in the journey. It's about going together, but it's having owners, it's having governance roles. It's about saying, okay, if I want to have sort of decision-making, data-driven decision-making, and I want to have embedded analytics for in all my whole business, it's about getting the people and the process through as much as the technology. But it's also great. We've built Omni, we've got it going. We may have worked with a partner, we may have done it ourselves. Awesome. But how do we track adoption? Where is it that I'm building a dashboard that works really, really well for some, but maybe not all? What is it that we're missing? Omni's really adaptable in that sense to say, okay, I can add new logic and can modify our semantic layer as we go. But it's also, okay, we've got this amazing dashboard or this amazing solution. It's about leading the change. So it's about training. It's about enablement. It's about aligning. It's about building clarity in what you're actually going to release. Because as we're attesting to, there's this amazing thing called talk to data or conversational analytics that's coming out here that absolutely people will want to use, but you've got to bring people on a journey. And it's really, really important. And that's to say things like a data-driven culture, having that will really, really help you.
Yeah, I think all of those points almost feed into that you finished up there with the culture, isn't it? All of these are cogs in the machine that is that data-driven culture. And as we all know, as we hear so often, that really is the route to success in 2025 and beyond, especially with, the ever-going advancements in AI. So, no, that's really interesting. Thank you, Elliott. Before we let you jump off, I do have one more question, if I may, and it is a little bit broader. It's a bit more kind of, rhetorical almost. But what would, from your expertise, from your position, what would you say is the future of BI? What's next? Is it just dashboards with a bit of AI sprinkled in there, or is it something bigger than that, do you think?
That's a big question.
It is a big question.
It's a big question. It's a good question, though. It's a good and a very big question. So I think when I look to if I sort of think sort of short to medium term, at the moment we have, as we've said, conversational analytics going on. We've got lots of tools coming out there to be able to support us to do more with data. So I think really, if I was sort of looking at what the future entails more, I think it's going to be a lot more around interconnected experiences. It's, okay, I've got this set of data. It tells me this, but what could it do with that information next? So thinking about like MCP servers and thinking about agentic workflows, that's going to become quite big, I feel. But that is something that's now. I think sort of, as I say, later, moving sort of further on, it is really about the interconnectedness of things. It's also really, I think, the why something has occurred. So I always sort of look at something to say, okay, well, I've got this bar chart, pie chart, scatter graph that's showing me this information. okay, I can ask a question to be able to interpret, how would I interpret this information?
Yeah.
But actually, it's the next depth of, why is that important? And what can I do with that? How, how's that going to move a dial? How's that going to bring the value? I think that's going to come. But I wouldn't necessarily even look towards necessarily the future, because we're in a really amazing position now. We're in a really interesting time now. So for businesses, if they can look at adoption and say, okay, we want to look to get to a point of aspiration to be able to do conversational analytics, that's a great starting point. And working with your teams, working with your business, with all these amazing people to go along that journey. And sometimes it's hard. So sometimes it's about getting a partner. But as I say, that's where I think it's about that collaboration. It's about interconnectedness.
Yeah, I think you touch on a really poignant point, and it may be a bit cliche, but it's almost the future is now. We've got so many advancements, and I think even, we look back the last 6 months, even our team, there's advancements and there's changes and developments that even we are constantly learning about. So yeah, I'll take that away as a note. The future is now. But no, thank you, Elliott. This has been a really insightful chat. I think from my perspective, there's certainly a lot that I've taken away there, and I think some of the key things for me are, there are new and next gen platforms available. They're out there, simplifying that access to data, platforms such as Omni, where we're reducing that bottlenecks and ultimately driving that data driven culture within a business. But I think the main thing is, gone are the days when it's just the responsibility of the data team. In this day and age, it's the responsibility of all business leaders, of all organizational leaders across different teams and departments to build that data foundations that we can trust across the whole organization. And I think only then will everybody be reading from that same page, leading to that collaboration and that better decision making moving forward. So yeah, from my perspective, it's all about that strong foundations, the data-driven culture across the teams, and ultimately in this day and age, that's what's going to lead to that culture to drive success moving forward. So once again, Elliott, I'll take a chance to say thank you very much for your time today. For those interested in finding out a bit more about Omni, Clekt, or AI in general, you can visit our website at clekt.co.uk, where you can find out loads more information.